Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. The subject that we're going to start with today, inshallah, is to how every one of us, the servant of Allah, are watching Allah, or Allah actually being conscious of Allah in our deed and what we say and what we do. And it is very expected that if any one of us knew that he's been watched by a camera or been taped or somebody who is watching him, that person will actually be very careful in what he say and will be careful in what he do. So this way he will not leave any chance of doubt or suspicion in his deed and his action. But the reality that unfortunately most of us are absent-minded about, that we are watched at all time, and there is somebody watching on our right and somebody watching us on our left, and above us somebody is, and above all that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is watching us at all time, the one who doesn't sleep or take a nap, if you will. And about this subject of being conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his awareness of us, we will define some terms. So what being watched mean? So we will know what being watched, by what being conscious of Allah mean, and how with that actually been narrated in the Quran and the Sunnah, and what the wisdom of being watched and being conscious of Allah and our deeds. So we will talk about the whole subject in details, taking it one step at a time, inshallah. And we will start first by defining being watched or being conscious again with the presence of Allah, and that can be defined as a constant awareness of the servants that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of his deed, the one he do in public and the one he do in secret, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching him, looking at him, listening to what he say, aware of his deed at all time and every moment and every breath he take. Imam al-Junaid was asked what I can get help to watch what I look at, how I can help myself with that. And the answer came from the scholar that your knowledge that the one who is looking at you and watching you more quicker and more faster than you're looking at what you're not supposed to look at. So meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always conscious and aware and watching you before you even start looking at something that you're not supposed to look at. Brother Abu Lais, his sister passed away, and the Imam is giving condolence. So give the brother your condolence for the passing of his sister. So when you are aware again that Allah is watching you and at every time, the Imam al-Junaid kind of summarize it in the fact what will help you to watch yourself is the fact that Allah is faster in watching you more than you even starting to look at something you're not supposed to look at, or to do a deed you're not supposed to do. And watching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being watched by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a state of worship, because you are worshipping Allah, the watcher, the knowledgeable, the one who hears everything, the one who sees everything. So when you recite the name of the 100 name of Allah, among them is the knowledgeable, the one who sees, the one who listens. So your state of being conscious of Allah is a state of worship. And the Prophet said, whoever the Prophet said, whoever for Allah have 100 names, whoever memorize them will actually enter heaven. And when we talk memorizing, is not just memorization in words, but actually in deed and action. And Imam is reciting these names of Allah. So to memorize Allah's names is to put it into action, is to put it into your actual deed, daily deeds. So when you know that Allah, the most knowledgeable, the one who sees everything, the one who hears everything, and you are not acting upon that knowledge, then it is not good. So the state of being aware of Allah in your life, in every aspect of your life, is a state of worship, because you are worshiping Allah in His names, in His virtues, in His name, the most knowledgeable, the most aware of everything, the one who sees everything and hears everything. So that will keep you in line, that keep you aware of your senses and how to put it in the right direction, or in the right state of obedience of Allah. And that is another definition is of the one who is watching you, is the state that a state of a person or a state of entity that actually watching your deed and your action. So the one who is watching you and you watching Allah watching you is the same, in, if you will. And this state of watching you or being watched is a continuous state that is not stopping, or that is not interrupted by any reason. So it's a state of continuity, and the judgment of Allah in it is constant. And with this state of awareness and being aware of is how our environment and how our existence is in the right order, in the right path, within the divine guidance, if you actually apply it, inshallah, in every action and every deed. And that's why when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most knowledgeable, His knowledge is continuous and His knowledge is solid and with no interruption. And with that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges us for what we do and what we say. And that's why this virtue of Allah being watching us is a reason for us to be mindful of him, is a reason of us to actually put piety in every aspect or every moment of our life. Now we're gonna what actually confirm or prove that this state of being watched and being aware of, if you will, in the Quran and the Sunnah, where it comes and where it is example of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us clearly, told us really that he is aware of us, that he knows of us, and let us know that. And this is just an action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we should be thankful for. Allah told us clearly that 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 He's in constant awareness of us, constant knowledge of all our deed, and that was narrated in verses the Imam will explain. So the Imam is actually referring to the sorcerer we were talking about in Jum'ah, that when they knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they seen the truth and experienced the truth, and they know that they are aware of a creator, aware of a might, of a Lord bigger than them, bigger than the Pharaoh. They prostrated right away, and they showed their belief in innocence. And that's why they were made to prostrate from what they seen of truth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed himself to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us and made us aware that he said, be aware, I am watching you, I am in conscious awareness of everything that you do, I hear you, I see you. And many instances and verses in the Quran indicate that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what can be translated, and know that Allah knows what's in your heart, then be careful, then take a notice. Allah knows just not what you do, but actually what's in your heart. So be careful, be careful, be aware of this awareness of Allah. Don't kind of put it aside. Allah also said, what can be translated, we created mankind and we know what his inner spirit whispered to him, and we are close to him than the jugular vein. And he have two people recording his deeds, one on the right and on the left, and nothing of what he utter of words, unless we have somebody who is writing and watching what he say and what he does. So the scholar said, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this angel to watch and write everything that we say and what we do, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called that angel the watcher. And the Imam is just actually is still defining the watcher. So the scholar said that angel who write and watch and record, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him the watcher. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nothing that we say or utter unless this watcher is aware and write everything. And he write everything good or bad. Imam Mujahid said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assign to the man, to every person, above his knowledge of that person, two angel by day and two angel by night. They actually record his deed and write what he does, and this is this way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have the proof and have the evidence as these two angels, one on the right and record the good, and the other on the left that he write the bad credit or the bad deed. And also it was narrated what can be translated in the Quran, that there is nothing a weight of an atom in the heaven or in the earth, or even smaller or bigger, unless it is recorded in a very well-known book, and this is Surah Yunus. Allah also said, what can be translated, don't they think that we don't know and hear what they do in secret and what they talk to one another in low voice, but we have our angel writing down everything that they do. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Alaq, what can be translated, don't they know that Allah sees? And Allah also said in Surah An-Nisa that Allah is always watching you, aware of your deed, aware of what you do, what you say. So he is conscious of everything and how that affect your environment, and nothing is hidden from him. And in Surah Ghafir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what can be translated, that Allah know even the little quick eye look, and what hidden in your heart. So you actually looking straight, but your eyes looking to the left or to the right in a flash. Allah is aware of that. Allah aware and know what you hide in your heart. The Imam is just describing again this quick look, this quick momentary look to something that you're not supposed to be looking at, or to be directing your attention to. The Imam is just telling stories when he was young and they left their village to the town, to the big town. Their Imam or their scholar who used to tell him, be careful when you go to the big town. Allah knows what you do and what you're looking at. On the authority of Ibn Abbas, may God be pleased with him, that the man who actually looked for a woman, and if people looked at him, he looked down, but if his friends didn't look at him, he looked back to that woman. This is the momentary look that he shouldn't, that Allah is aware of, even with that little one. Imam Qadada said, describing that Allah knows those that momentary look, is Allah's awareness with this little look in something that Allah does not love or does not like. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about and aware of. We all know that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even for something righteous or something lawful, refused to have this quick look or this action that is, it's wrong in the eyes of the Prophet. And Imam is narrating a story, the story of Sa'd ibn Sarh, which is a man is a very well known, and was actually escaping from the Muslim when the Muslim actually liberated Mecca, and the Prophet actually was in Mecca at the time, while this man was kind of in a hiding. So Abdullah ibn Abi Salh was sitting behind him, and one of the companion told the Prophet, this man came to pledge his allegiance, but the Prophet actually did not look at him, and everyone know that this man was actually did a lot to harm the Muslim and to hurt the Muslim before Islam, and the man was sitting to the Prophet, kind of pointing to this man behind him, and this is man coming to pledge his allegiance, and the Prophet is not responding. And when Osman kept telling him and the Prophet did not move, the Prophet, peace be upon him, actually accepted his allegiance, and he was a Muslim, and then returned on Islam before liberation of Mecca. So the point, when Osman took that man left and he adopted Islam, there was a man who actually swore that he would kill that person who actually was a Muslim and returned from Islam. The Prophet was asking him, why didn't you swear that you're going to kill him? You wouldn't kill him. He said, but O Prophet of Allah, why you didn't give me a hint, give me a wink, if you will, then I would kill him. And the Prophet said, there is no way a Prophet would have a simple motion to indicate something hidden, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. That something is not good for a Prophet to do. So that's why Imam Qadada actually said that this a hint with the eye is a blink of an eye, actually, that take a look in something that you're not supposed to look at. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of that. So in every page in the Quran you will find that declaration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of you, know what's in your heart, and know about you more than you even know about your own self. And in that what was translated in the Quran, revealed in the Quran. But in in a hadith, it was narrated by Jibril, في hadith Jibril, that that he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asked the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about goodness and righteousness, and the Prophet said that you worship Allah as if you see him, and if you don't see him, he actually sees you. So the worship, that what the Prophet said. How righteousness, how you define righteousness? Righteousness is, as the Prophet said, is to worship Allah as if you see him, and if if you don't see him, he sees you. And the same thing when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your prayer, you should pray and worship Allah in your 5 prayer, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is between you and your direction of your qibla. Also in a book of Hilya, it was narrated, and the people who really watch Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truthfully are in secret. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love a person, he put his love in the heart of his brothers. Also, it was narrated in the book of Hilya on the authority of Abi Abdullah that he was asked about this watching issue, and he said, if you was about to do something, then be aware that Allah is looking at you, and if you're gonna say something, look that Allah is hearing you, and if you are even silent, then know that Allah is aware of what's in your heart. Then he recited that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what can be translated, that I am with you, I hear and I see. So Allah is with you, saying I hear and I see at all time. And Allah also said, I know what's in your heart, and be careful and be aware. Now the wisdom, why Allah declared and told us about that we are watched and being in constant constant state of being watched at all time. And the wisdom of that the Quran revealed it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remind us that he is watching us, so he make us aware of being sincere, and we watch ourselves and we judge ourselves, that with the meaning that whoever remember and conscious that Allah is watching him and know about what he does, he actually he will be more up to be mindful of Allah, and to will stay within the divine guidance of Allah. So to be in a constant worship of Allah is to watch him, is to watch Allah and be aware that you are watched at all time in all your deed. So when you know and you are consciously aware that Allah is most knowledgeable, most watcher, most listening to you, you will be in a state of being mindful of Allah, and you will. So if you do something, you are aware, and if you leave something, you also are leaving it for the sake of Allah. Some of the scholars said that the human being will not actually be in a state of spirituality, in a state spiritual, if you will, unless his heart is conscious of this state of being watched. And that's why it was said that your inner spirit will be complete if you are in a state again of conscious awareness and mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you are again in conscious awareness that you are watched, your heart will be illuminated with piety, illuminated with goodness, and being on the straight path of Islam and belief and faith. So you are actually ascending in the ladder of spirituality as your state of consciousness of Allah in your life increase. As you watch Allah and as your awareness of Allah in your life increase, you ascend more in spirituality and in your state of goodness. So when you are in a state of complete absent-minded of Allah and He's watching you, you are basically become like an animal following your sinful desires. So there is different levels for every mankind, for every servant of Allah. The more he is conscious of Allah in his life, the more he ascend in spirituality and ascend in goodness. So So the person, the human, will never ascend in spirituality unless he actually ascend in that state of consciousness of Allah in his life, watching Him and know about Him. Al-Hasan al-Basri, he recited the verse that can be translated on the right and the left, an angel that's sitting, and he explained that saying, son of Adam, Allah assigned like a book for you, and give that book to a very generous angels, one on the right and one on your left. They are generous, one will on the right and one on the left, and the one on the right he gather your good deed, and the one on the left he actually collect your bad deed. So do what you will, or do what you wish, a lot or a little, until the time you die, your book will be closed, and that book will be in your neck, in your grave, until you come out in the day of judgment. And the Imam is referring to a verse in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do what you wish. Allah is aware of everything that you do. Do what you wish, but Allah is know and aware of everything that you do. And that's why the Imam Al-Hasan said, when you die, your book will be closed and he will be hanged on your neck in your grave until you come out in the day of judgment. And at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, for what can be translated, every man we have his book in his neck, and in the day of judgment that book will be open and will be asked, read your book, and it is enough for you, judge for yourself. Here is your book, here is what you did, and you gonna be judged justly with your awareness of what in front of you. Nobody, the judgment will be left up to you, as your book is there with good and bad. The Imam is telling a story about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, that he was sick, and one of his companion told him, Imam Ahmad, that the angel write everything, even your because he was sick. And at that moment, the Imam Ahmad became silent, that he didn't want to even utter the word of complaint while he's sick. So after Imam Ahmad knew that, he actually quit saying even at that point. And Imam is telling a story that even any action or any deed or any words is recorded, and for Allah is the one to interpret the meaning of what is written. And even if it was a whistle, somebody whistled, and the angel said, how I'm going to write this? He whistled, and the other angel told him, just write it as a whistle, and for Allah to interpret its meaning. So when Imam Ahmad was sick, and he was very sick, and he was kind of complaining, the minute he know that the angels writing his and his noise, he quit, and he did not write it. He doesn't want in his book of deeds that he was actually saying So the irony that you are the one who fill this book of deeds, you are responsible for that book of deeds. And Imam Razi, explaining the verse that can be translated, didn't I tell you that I know what you do and what you hold in secret? And Allah was talking to the angel at the time. So this verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling his angel, don't you know that I know what you say and what you put in public and what you hide in secret. So Imam Razi said, explaining this verse, said, know that in this verse you have to be afraid a lot, and also you should be happy a lot, because the knowledge of Allah should make us afraid and should also make us happy. And in this verse there is happiness and there is fear. How is that, Imam? He said regarding fear, and that Imam Fakhruddin Razi, he put 1,000 indication of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he was about to die, he said, oh Allah, I wish to have the belief of the good men who are old and weak. So a scholar, he actually wanted a belief of the weak who are sitting at home in old age. He wanted the faith of the modest, belief of the modest. So this Imam Razi explaining regarding fear in that verse, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aware of everything in your heart. It's very important for every person to clean and cleanse his inside, his inner self, and don't commit any sin that Allah would be aware of. So that and that will should us make you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that verse. And then he narrated a hadith by Imam Abu Nu'aym that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that it was narrated on the authority of Adi that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that in the day of judgment it will be ordered with some people to heaven until they get close to heaven and they look at it and they smell its smell, and to what Allah prepared for the people of heaven, they were called to go back, to move back. They will be called to go back away from heaven. They don't have any luck in entering heaven. So then they go back in regret. Nothing like it. In a regret that nothing like it. And they said, "Oh Allah, if you put us in hell before you show us heaven, and what you prepared for your righteous people, that will be easier for us. So if you put us in hell without seeing heaven and what's in it of goodness, it will be easy on us." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "That's what I wanted for you. That's exactly what I want for you." Why Allah said that? Because if you are alone, you did major sins, and if you meet people, you hide. So if you are on your own, nobody watching, you do the major sin, and if people are around, you hide, and you try to look righteous and you try to look good, and like a person who is very repenting to Allah. So you show people with what is different from what you know in your heart. You fear people and you didn't fear me. You glorify people and you don't glorify me. And you left bad things for the sake of people and not for my sake. So this day, taste a very strong punishment for what I actually deprived you of goodness. Also, another story, Sulaiman ibn Ali said to another scholar, "Give me an advice." He said, "If you disobey Allah in secret and thinking that He does not see you, then you are actually you commit a big aggression against Allah. And if you thought that He does not and if you thought that He does not see you, you are a disbeliever. So if you think and know that He see you and you commit that sin, you are actually committing aggression against Allah. And if you actually thought that He doesn't see you, you actually are a disbeliever." And the third, it was said to Hatim al-Asam, "Cleanse yourself of 3 conditions. If you were doing something with your inner self slowly يا شيخنا, slow down a little يا شيخنا, بالراحة شوي. So the so Hatim al-Ta'i said, cleanse yourself of three things. If you do a deed with your inner self, then remember that Allah is looking at you. And if you say something, then mention that Allah hears you. And if you are silent, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aware was what's in your heart. Then remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge with you. Okay يا شيخنا, okay يا شيخنا. And this is something we mentioned that earlier, and that's why the scholar took this knowledge to heart, and they all took from the same source, the Quran and the Sunnah. These words were narrated from a lot of scholars. All the early Muslims mentioned the same thing. So they talk as if they were sitting together, and actually they were a period of time apart. But because of all the scholars get their knowledge from the same source, they actually speak the same language. And the Imam is saying that as you watch Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything you do, you will get insha'Allah rewards. And we will have to, and we will insha'Allah will continue next week insha'Allah. And the Imam again is reminding everybody that our brother Abu Lais, his sister passed, and she will be buried tomorrow, and there is a dinner tomorrow in the masjid for condolence insha'Allah. So tomorrow we will talk a little bit, reminding one another of the hereafter. May Allah forgive her sins and put her in heaven insha'Allah. The Imam is supplicating, so say Ameen. Ameen. And the Imam is saying this sister was young lady. May Allah disregard her sins and be merciful with her. And for every one of us, a time that will die and a time that will go back to Allah. No age or no illness will be a factor. It is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Imam is saying when somebody die in a state of illness is actually a gift, because Allah, the Prophet peace be upon him, said that that earth is the prison of the believer and the heaven of the disbeliever. So you are actually, for the believer, he is coming out of prison to heaven insha'Allah. So earth is prison for the believer, and death insha'Allah is heaven, and this is heaven for the believer. Ameen, ameen. And tomorrow Isha prayer is at 9 o'clock, and we will continue this subject next week insha'Allah. Assalamu alaikum.